It's a really bright, sunny, nice day out. It's cold. It's got to be like high teens, low 20 at best. The only problem we're gonna have is we have a slight breeze going that way. So that means when I get down here doing this main road that cuts all the way through and down there, it's probably gonna suck a lot on the way down because the wind's gonna be blowing towards me. It's gonna be a headwind. It's not heavy, but it's just enough. And this snow is so cold that it's really fluffy. So that just means it's gonna go all over the sky and all over me. So once we get started, I'll probably, if I have to, I'll turn that chute down low just to keep it from airing out into the sky. The higher it goes up, the farther it can go, but only if it's not being blown apart by the wind. Being blown apart by the wind just makes a huge mist cloud of snow and ice that you run into the whole time, and that just is miserable. So we're gonna do our best, see what we can do. I needed to take a few minutes and remove the loader and put the snowblower back onto the tractor. We'd had a bit of a break in storms of any real measurable amount, so it's been a minute since I've had the snowblower back on, and I needed to make sure it was going to be ready to use for this next little bit of storm. Just did a little bit of a test run here in front of the shop with everything. Everything seems to be going really good. Now that I knew it was pretty well ready to go, it was time to make my way all the way down our roads and down the main road to try to clear as much of this snow as I could. We had another big set of storms on their way, and so I wanted to be prepared and have as much of this cleared out of here as we could before it came in again. I was really hoping that I wouldn't have any big issues of catching rocks or any big sticks or anything like that caught up in the snowblower again, and I figured it would probably be mostly okay. However, there is one section on the main road that's about 400 or 500 yards length that I just haven't had a chance to get the snowblower down along, and that's on the downhill side. And that side is notoriously bad for large rocks that are anywhere from 3 inches up to 8 inches in diameter. So I'm fully anticipating running into a rock or two when I get to that section of road. But I'm hoping that everything goes really smoothly, at least up until then.
All I want in this whole life, a little red house and a country wife, a picnic table out on the lawn, a couple of kids and a couple of dogs. Work all day to 5:30, a chain link fence and a gravel drive, the wind chime ringing on my front porch, a brand new carpet on every floor, and a rope swing tied around a limb of a tall oak tree. It don't sound like much, but it sure is heaven to me. A big bathtub in my bathroom, microwave, dishwasher too. The folks say hi when they pass on the street. A clean pair of socks every day of the week. A big soft chair for when I'm old. A tackle box and a fishing pole. I don't care about the fortune or fame. I just don't wanna know my mailman's name. At Christmas time, I'm gonna leave him a gingerbread cookie. It don't sound like much, but it sure is heaven to me. Every now and then we go on a vacation, big radio and a country station, hot dog grill in the noonday sun, drink a little beer, boy, have a little fun. Some folks worry about getting ahead, but I'm gonna live a little before I'm dead. And anyway, they say the best things in life are free. It don't sound like much, but it sure is heaven to me. light and a garden hose. All my buddies and their wives have a big barbecue on the 4th of July, and a cheap guitar so I can play a little melody. It don't sound like much, but it sure is heaven to me. No, it don't sound like much, but it sure is heaven to me.
Once I made it to the end of the road and was heading the other direction, the wind would be at my back. So I raised the deflector flap on the discharge chute so that it would shoot a lot higher and farther away. I was able to make pretty good time on my way down and was actually able to go around 5 miles an hour, which is pretty good. The downhill direction and the light fluffiness of the snow allowed me to go a lot faster than I typically could. This tractor is about as small a tractor as you can put on this big of a snowblower, so it really has to work pretty good in order to keep the snow throwing really well. This spot right here is where we start into the section of road that I was mentioning earlier. And that was my first rock of the day, about an 8-inch rock. Luckily the slip clutch worked and everything went fine until the log that I just hit now. I checked the shear bolt and it was still there, so I tried again and then realized that the shear bolt wasn't broken, but the bolt that went through the drive sprocket on the new shaft that I replaced had broken. So now I had to make my way all the way back to the shop, move that drive sprocket out of the way and the chain out of the way to drive out the section of bolt that was still stuck in the middle of the shaft and replace it with a new one. So I started off with using the little propane torch to melt the snow and ice around the area so it wouldn't keep dripping on me while I was laying under it. And then I pulled forward to some dry concrete and got to work. When the sprocket had spun free on the shaft, it galled the shaft just a little bit, so it made it tough to get the sprocket out of the way far enough. But with a little bit of convincing, otherwise known as a really big hammer, I was able to get it out of the way, drive out the old bolt, polish up the shaft, and then reinstall the sprocket with a new bolt and reinstall the chain. That meant I had to dig out all the snow that was packed in around the auger so that I could rotate it freely to get everything to line up. Then I had to make the ugly trip back into the headwind on my way back down to where I left off. So I figured I may as well take the middle section of the road and throw it off while I'm going and get all the way to the bottom again before coming back up and starting over. Right here, I realized that my tractor was starting to smoke quite a bit out of the exhaust, a lot more than it should have for the workload. So I stopped to check and make sure that the radiator was free and clear and wasn't all bound up with snow and ice. There was quite a bit of snow in that cavity, however. So as I got going, I realized what actually had happened was that fluffy light snow had sucked into my air filter and plugged up my air intake. So I stopped and dusted all the snow out of the air filter and out of the air cleaner housing, and then reinstalled it, and then we were ready to go again. I was, however, quite a ways from where I had previously stopped, so as I made my way back there, I decided to clean out a few of our little pull-out areas along the way. These little spots are pretty important when the road starts to grow in from the edges with snow. It gives us a spot to pull off and let somebody else pass by as we're both coming in opposite directions. Back to where I had left off, fingers crossed I would go smoothly. However, I only got 30 feet farther and hit another big rock. This time, it lodged itself pretty hard into the auger and took some pretty serious convincing to come loose. So I checked everything else out, and it looked like everything was still okay, except for the shear bolt had broke. So I had to go and replace that before I could get moving. Once I got that done and kept going with this road, I felt like I was in the final home stretch. I only had another 200 yards that I hadn't plowed before, and it seemed like everything was going to go just fine until there. And that's when I found that the master link had broke from the impact of the rock and it had come loose. So I was done for the day, and we considered it a cleared road. Made my way back up to the shop. I didn't have an extra master link, so I was going to have to wait till the next day anyway before I could go into town and pick up a new master link to put it back together. I thought I would take a few minutes with the shovel and try to scrape off as much of the accumulated snow as I could. I don't need that melting in the shop and running all over, so the more of it I can get off here, the better off things will be. Tomorrow I'll get a new link and then get this thing ready for the next bit of storms.